honored to get to ask you these questions. Do you believe that AI deepfakes, misinformation, disinformation, and the like are threats to the integrity of the Canadian telecommunications system?
I think there are threats on a number of, in a number of ways.
They are threats to our telecommunications system. So my concerns with this bill are largely surrounding 15.2. If there are reasonable grounds to believe that it is necessary to do so to secure the Canadian telecommunications system against any threat, and then to paraphrase a little bit, the Minister of Industry, that being Mélanie Joly, may consult with the Minister of Public Safety, that being you, to, quote, prohibit a telecommunication service provider providing any service to any specified person. Am I any specified person? Or potentially?
I think you're looking at the clause in isolation, Mr. Strauss. And let me just say, like, in order to execute one of these revocations, for lack of a better term, there is a process in place. So it is not
does not include a warrant. Is that correct?
Arbitrary. If I could just maybe finish, it is not an arbitrary process. There is. We need to have evidence that that individual poses a threat to the critical infrastructure, cyber infrastructure of the country, and without that, their account could not be revoked.
Minister, so why does it say telecommunication system instead of critical infrastructure in the bill? Like, it's your bill.
In this particular case, there is some technical issues, Mr. Chair. At some point, maybe we can look at it.
I'll just maybe, and we'll stop the clock for a second. I think it was MP Lloyd who appropriately raised a question of microphones and recordings. The system, according to my understanding, works in the following manner. If we want to be heard, when we start speaking, we need to turn the microphone on a second or two before we do so, so the system connects to your microphone. So it's a matter of 1, perhaps 2 seconds before you speak. If you absolutely want to be heard, and which is the normal case, I suppose, you need to connect your microphone before a second or two before you start speaking. Having said that, MP Strauss, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I have a concern about critical infrastructure, and I think impingements on civil liberties to protect critical infrastructure could be justified, but that's not what the bill says. So could you allay my concern by, instead of saying the telecommunication system, changing it to say critical infrastructure pertaining to the telecommunication system?
If that's an amendment that you would wish to make, I will be more than willing to look at it. Mr. Strauss, I can't give you that. I can't give you that answer, off the top without giving some reflection and getting some advice on it. But we'll be more than glad to look at it.
I mean, I've been raising this in the House for more than a month, so I would prefer that you had reflected on it already.
If I may, the debate oftentimes brings a number of perspectives there that may not materialize into amendments. So I do think, from a process perspective, if there's something you want to put forward as part of the amending process that we will have in this committee, I will more than glad to look at it.
I will do. Thank you. And then also, subsection 3 says that the order that is made to any person to deny them any service, which is obviously overbroad, may include the prohibition of the disclosure of its existence. So if I did something that you and Mélanie Joly thought was misinformation, and you decide to revoke my internet privileges, you can order me not to disclose that to anyone. Is that correct?
To be clear, this is not about misinformation, Mr. Strauss.
You said that's a threat to telecommunications.
Absolutely not about misinformation. This is about critical threats to our infrastructure, including telecommunications. So let's not, I think we have to be very careful. There's a delineation here. There's misinformation that happens every single day around on a range of different platforms, and they are not subject to this legislation. What is subject to the legislation is if an individual causes a threat to our telecommunication infrastructure or other critical infrastructure.
But Minister, it doesn't say that. Like, it doesn't say critical infrastructure. You're telling me the bill's not about what it says. So in any case, if I threaten it in however you interpret 15.1, if I threaten it, then you can order me not to say that I've been kicked off the internet. Is that correct?
It is not about kicking people off the internet, Mr. Strauss. It's about the protection of our infrastructure, of our telecommunications
by kicking people off
systems.
the internet.
not based on frivolous, allegations, right? Because we are living in a world of misinformation. Sadly, it is a sad reality, I think, for all of us here, and all of us as politicians face that on every single day.
Who decides if
does
the
not-
allegations are frivolous? Who decides that? If it's not a judge.
Sorry, I was a bit patient, but as you will have known, MP Strauss and Minister, when those comments and questions overlap, it becomes impossible for a significant portion of those listening to us understand what's going on because the interpreters cannot do their job. So I'd like to invite both of you to speak in a manner which makes it possible for everyone to follow the conversation. And I'll turn back to you, MP Strauss, for 30 seconds.
If these secret orders are not subject to judicial review, then it is you and Melanie Joly who will decide if there are reasonable grounds and if the threat is significant. So when you say it's not arbitrary, it is arbitrarily left to the ministers by my reading of the bill. Is that not correct?
We rely on information and advice from experts. Some of them are here today.
I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
No,
Why
it's-
would you
it's
not?
not a- it's
Why
not
would
a
you
yes,
not?
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Strauss.
I'm sorry. That will be
Like,
the
I
end
would
of the
appreciate-
segment. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. So I would hate to suspend. So that is the end of the segment. We have 5 minutes now for MP Assassi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here with us again today. I have to say that I find members opposite just rambling off all the time on this legislation. I find it to be a very sophisticated piece of legislation. So what Mr. Strauss just said, he says that if someone says something that you disagree with, then you could cut off their access to the internet. In very, very clear language, tell me why there is no chance that would ever happen.
Categorically say that will not happen, Mr. Assassi. The situation here is about ensuring our infrastructure, our critical cyber infrastructure is protected. In an exceptional circumstance where an individual's account may be revoked, it is with the clear understanding that individual poses a continued threat, so that person continuing the service will pose a threat to our critical infrastructure. This is not an ad hoc exercise. This comes from advice that we will receive from experts, and I am going to ask Mr. Arbour, with your permission, to maybe elaborate on the work and the analysis that they do before the advice goes to the Minister of Industry, who will then bring it to my attention.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The phrase telecommunications system stems from the existing vocabulary in the Telecommunications Act that goes back many decades, and so it is speaking to the telecommunications facilities and services rather than the commentary of individuals' expressive commentary. So the types of threats that we may be concerned about would be, for instance, an incident in 2016 when Canadian traffic bound for Korea was redirected to China for 6 months and opened up to surveillance in that regard. It can involve malware or ransomware that is threatening to bring down our telecommunications networks on which Canadians rely. The order power in question refers to a reasonable necessity corresponding to the gravity of the threat to require in that instance. So if other remediation mechanisms are not possible, as a last resort, that is the circumstances of that authority. In terms of confidentiality, that exists where divulging the vulnerability in question would invite greater cyber attacks to the telecommunications services in question, and is subject to review in terms of notification to NCR and NSICOP and an annual report to Parliament that must describe the orders in question, including their necessity and reasonableness. Thank you.
Thank you. And last week when you were here, your testimony was very, very helpful. Minister, so just one more time, just to clarify this issue. So what are the safeguards in this bill, and why are the assertions being made by Mr. Strauss not to be taken seriously? Because not only does this legislation have many safeguards, in addition to that, it seems that he doesn't even understand the most basic concepts of administrative law. So would you kindly clarify that for Canadians?
Let me broaden the issue. Look, I think Canadians are rightfully concerned about their privacy rights, and they should be, right? Every Canadian should protect their privacy with the utmost vigor and their free speech with the same level of vigor. What we're trying to do here is in no way to impede on individuals' right to free expression, their individual ability to access internet or other telecommunication services. We are under the narrowest of circumstances, as Mr. Arbour had explained, going after individuals, and as a last resort, those who pose a threat to our telecommunication system. Oftentimes, it's dangerous to read legislation in a manner that doesn't connect to other long-standing legal covenants. I think it's important in the context of legislative review to look at the established covenants and established legal principles in which we're working. So I can appreciate, I think, some of the concerns that are expressed, but it is ill-founded and it is without merit. What is important, I think, for the purpose of this committee, and I would really implore this committee to look at where we are today with respect to the challenges around cyber security and what measures we need to take as parliamentarians to protect everyone in Canada and every critical infrastructure, telecommunications and others, in order to safeguard against threats.
Thank you, Minister and MP Assassi.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, I've looked at C8, and I don't see any independent mechanism to review orders issued by Cabinet. Don't you think something could have been added there about that for a control mechanism in terms of making there be accountability?
Is, in my opinion, subject to judicial review. So it is not. It doesn't end at just an order in council. That it can go beyond that. The decision can be reviewed by the courts.
Oui, je comprends que ça peut être révisé par la Cour, mais...
Yes, I understand that it can be reviewed by the courts. And perhaps I didn't express myself clearly, but generally speaking, wouldn't it be a good idea to have some sort of accountability process on the part of your department with respect to an independent organization? I don't know which one, but waiting for a citizen to ask for a judicial review may be a bit, well, I wouldn't say negligent, but I think that we could be more proactive than that and ensure annual accountability or some sort of every 5-year, every 2-year report. It would seem that there should be something in the Act to ensure that follow-up is done. Doesn't this seem to be useful to you?
The reason we have NCIRA and NCCOP, and they're now fairly established entities that do review, particularly around issues around national security, because in certain cases there is an element of discretion that's required, and they do report. So my response, Mr. Fortin, is that is built-in mechanism within the Act that does refer to NCCOP and NCIRA for review.
Qui répond à qui?
And to whom do they answer?
I mean, NCIRA ultimately reports to Parliament. They are institutions
À quelle
of Parliament.
fréquence? Je m'excuse, je veux pas être...
How often? I don't want to be impolite, sorry, but the time is passing quickly. So how frequently does this come before Parliament?
Well, first of all, the parties are represented, if you recall, within these entities. And for reference, I do believe there's Conservatives as well as Bloc members who are part of the review. So it is a representative entity that does report ultimately to Parliament on an annualized basis.